Cat in Mine, Home, Claude, HFY Story, Part 1, DMD, EOF. The Grand Judgment Chamber of the Galactic Council hung suspended in space, its crystalline spires catching the light of 3 distant suns. Inside, Ambassador Elena Reyes stood alone on the circular platform, her simple gray uniform stark against the ornate chamber. 200 alien representatives watched from tiered seats, some with multiple eyes, others with sensory appendages humans couldn't comprehend. Humans. The voice of High Arbiter Voxtal resonated through the chamber, his 8-foot frame draped in ceremonial metals that shifted colors with his emotions. Currently, they displayed contempt. For 3 cycles, we have observed your species. You've mastered faster-than-light travel impressively quickly. Your adaptability is noteworthy. Elena's heartbeat quickened, but she maintained her diplomatic composure. However, Voxtal continued, his bioluminescent facial ridges pulsing with disappointment. The Council has reached its decision. Earth will be classified as a Category 4 civilization, technically advanced but culturally primitive. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Category 4 meant restricted travel rights, limited trade opportunities, and perpetual supervision by Council enforcers. The evidence is irrefutable, declared Ambassador Larithi from the Meldorian Collective, her translucent skin revealing the agitation in her circulatory system. Humans build weapons before art. They create algorithms to maximize profit rather than harmony. They pollute their own world and would bring that same destruction to ours. Elena stepped forward. With respect, the Council hasn't. We've seen enough, interrupted Korzeth of the Tachyon Dominion, his metallic exoskeleton clanking as he pointed an accusatory appendage. Your species' history is written in blood. Your most advanced achievements are military. You cannot create true beauty, only imitations or destructive tools. The chamber darkened as evidence materialized. Holographic projections of Earth's wars, environmental destruction, and chaotic urban sprawls. The judgment stands, Voxtal declared. Unless... The chamber fell silent. Unless you can demonstrate within 1 galactic cycle that humans possess the capacity for true beauty. Not the primitive expressions you call art, but beauty that transforms, beauty that transcends your violent nature. Elena's mind raced. 1 galactic cycle, approximately 6 Earth months. The Council requires proof that humans can create beauty that even the most advanced civilizations would recognize as transcendent. Fail, and Earth will remain Category 4, indefinitely. As Elena opened her mouth to respond, the chamber's security system suddenly blared. Confused aliens looked around as the crystal walls of the chamber began resonating at an unfamiliar frequency. What trickery is this? Demanded Voxtal, his color-shifting metals now pulsing red with alarm. No trickery, Elena said calmly, though her heart pounded. Just the arrival of my colleague. The massive doors to the chamber parted, revealing a slender human woman carrying what looked like an antique wooden case. The newcomer, Dr. Mariam Okafor, Earth's foremost quantum artist, walked confidently toward the platform, her dark skin contrasting with her white lab coat. The Council acknowledges no unscheduled arrivals, hissed Larithi. Mariam placed her case on the floor and looked up at the assembled aliens. I understand you believe humans cannot create beauty, she said, her voice steady despite the hundreds of alien eyes fixed upon her. I'm here to prove you wrong. The chamber erupted in protest, various alien representatives shouting in their native tongues while translation devices struggled to keep up. Voxtal raised a limb for silence, the metals on his body flashing warning colors. This interruption is unprecedented, he declared. Security, remove the intruder. 2 hulking Vrexel guards moved toward Mariam, their gelatinous bodies rippling with aggressive chromatophores. Elena stepped between them and her colleague. High Arbiter, I invoke Article 7 of the First Contact Protocols, Elena announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. Any species facing classification judgment may present evidence in their defense through representatives of their choosing. The guards hesitated, looking toward Voxtal. The High Arbiter's facial ridges pulsed with frustration, but he nodded reluctantly. Protocol recognized. The human may speak. Mariam knelt and opened her wooden case. Inside was not technology as the Council might have expected. but something far more primitive. A small glass vial containing what appeared to be ordinary sand, a brush made from animal hair, and several containers of colored pigment. "What primitive implements are these?" scoffed Korzeth. "We expected at least some demonstration of your technological prowess." "Technology is not beauty," Miriam replied, removing the items from her case. "Technology is merely a tool. Beauty transcends the means of its creation." She uncorked the vial and poured the sand onto the platform, forming a perfect circle about 3 feet in diameter. With practiced movements, she began to work the colored pigments into intricate patterns within the circle. "Is this what humans consider art?" Larithe asked, her translucent skin now showing patterns of confusion mixed with disappointment. "Arranging colored particles? This is called a mandala," Miriam explained without looking up from her work. "It represents the cosmos, the eternal cycle of creation and destruction. In my culture, the creation is as important as the final image, and its destruction is equally significant." As she spoke, her hands moved with increasing speed and precision. The colored sands formed shapes that seemed to pulse with life, creating optical illusions that made several council members lean forward in their seats. "Interesting visual trick," admitted a representative from the Arcturian confluence, their crystalline body refracting light in response to the mandala's patterns, but hardly evidence of transcendent beauty. "The mandala is not my evidence," Miriam said, completing her work with a final sprinkle of brilliant blue sand. "It is merely my introduction." She stood and reached into her pocket, removing what appeared to be a simple glass sphere no larger than her palm. Within it swirled a galaxy of microscopic lights. "This contains a quantum-entangled sample of every form of human artistic expression," she explained, "from our earliest cave paintings to our most advanced virtual realities. Not reproductions, actual quantum signatures of the original works captured at the moment of their creation." Voxtal's interest was visibly piqued, his metals shifting to a curious amber. "How is this possible? Human technology should not be capable of quantum artistic integration." "Perhaps that is why you underestimate us," Elena suggested. "You see only what you expect to see." Miriam placed the sphere at the center of her sand mandala. "With the Council's permission, I would like to demonstrate what human beauty truly means, not through explanation, but through experience." The 7 arbiters conferred briefly before Voxtal nodded. "Proceed, but be warned. Any attempt to influence the Council through technological manipulation will result in immediate termination of this demonstration and permanent Category 5 classification for Earth Category 5. Elena suppressed a shudder. That would mean quarantine, possibly even sterilization of their solar system. Miriam seemed unfazed by the threat. "What you are about to experience is not manipulation. It is communication, across the barriers of biology, culture, and perception that separate us." She knelt beside the mandala and placed her hands on either side of the glass sphere. "I ask only that you open yourselves to the experience. Judge it after, but experience it first." As the council chamber fell silent, Miriam closed her eyes in concentration. The sphere began to glow, softly at first, then with increasing intensity. The sand mandala seemed to vibrate, its patterns shifting subtly as if alive. Then, without warning, the sphere shattered, but instead of glass fragments, what erupted from it was pure light. Light that formed images in the air above the platform, images that moved and transformed. A cave painting of a bison that began to run. Renaissance paintings whose subjects stepped from their frames. Modern abstract works that folded space around themselves. The images multiplied, filling the chamber with a kaleidoscope of human creativity spanning 30,000 years. But they were not merely visual. Somehow the experience transcended sight. The council members felt the texture of sculpted marble, heard the harmonies of Bach and the rhythms of West African drums, tasted the emotional resonance of poetry in languages they'd never encountered. Elena watched in amazement as the alien representatives responded. The gelatinous Vrexil guards had completely changed color, their aggressive chromatophores now displaying patterns of wonder and reverence. The crystalline Arcturians vibrated at frequencies that created harmonies with the music echoing through the chamber. Even Korzeth's mechanical exoskeleton seemed to have relaxed its rigid posture, its angles softening as if affected by the experience. Most surprising was Voxtal. The High Arbiter had risen from his seat, his ceremonial metal shifting through colors Elena had never seen before, colors that seemed to exist somewhere between the visible spectrum and emotion itself. "This is," he began, then stopped, apparently at a loss for words, perhaps for the first time in council history. Miriam opened her eyes, sweat beading on her forehead from the effort of maintaining the quantum projection. "This is human beauty," she said simply. "Not separate from our struggles, our violence, our contradicti." Cat War Home Claude HFY Story Part.MD EOF 3 weeks after the tense confrontation at the Galactic Council. Dr. Mariam Okafor's laboratory on the outskirts of New Lagos hummed with activity. Holographic projections filled the air, star charts, quantum equations, and artistic renderings that seemed to bend reality itself. "They've set us up to fail," Elena said, pacing the room while Mariam worked. "The Council has never defined true beauty. It's subjective by nature. And they know it." Mariam adjusted settings on a device that resembled a fusion between a painter's easel and a particle accelerator. "That's precisely why we can win," she replied. "Beauty transcends species barriers. I've spent my life studying how perception of beauty works across neural architectures." "The Council gave us 6 months," Elena reminded her. "Other species took centuries to develop art forms that satisfied the Council's standards." "Other species weren't humans," Mariam said with quiet confidence. "We've always created under pressure." The laboratory door slid open and Commander Jackson Thorne entered, a grizzled veteran who now served as head of Earth's Defense Intelligence. "Bad news," he announced. "We've detected Council surveillance probes in Earth orbit. They're monitoring everything." "Expected," Mariam replied without looking up from her work. "They don't trust us." "It's worse," Jackson continued. "Our intelligence suggests 3 Council members, the Tachyon Dominion, the Meldorian Collective, and the Vrexel Imperium, have already submitted proposals to partition Earth's resources once we're officially classified as Category 4. Elena's hands clenched into fists. "They never intended to give us a fair chance." "Then we don't play fair either," Jackson suggested. "Military options would only prove them right about us," Mariam interrupted, finally looking up. Her eyes reflected the holographic stars swirling above her workspace. "Violence is exactly what they expect. We need to surprise them." Elena moved closer to examine Mariam's work. "What exactly are you creating?" "Something they've never seen before," Mariam explained, manipulating quantum fields with her hands as if conducting an orchestra. "Human art has always been limited by physical constraints, pigments that fade, stone that erodes, digital media that corrupts. But I've discovered how to encode beauty directly into the quantum substrate of reality itself." Jackson looked skeptical. "You're saying you can make what?" "Art that exists between dimensions. Art that exists everywhere and nowhere," Mariam corrected. "Beauty that rewrites the observer's perception of reality, not as an illusion but as a fundamental truth." A soft chime interrupted them. The laboratory's security system announced, "Approaching vessel. Council identification verified." Elena moved to the window. A sleek silver craft descended from the clouds. "They're here earlier than expected." High Arbiter Voxtal himself, Jackson confirmed, checking his tactical display. "Along with representatives from 7 Council worlds." Mariam closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with renewed determination. "Good. I need test subjects." "You're not ready," Elena protested. "I don't need to be ready yet," Mariam replied, packing equipment into a specialized case. "I just need to show enough progress to keep them intrigued and buy us more time." As the alien delegation approached the laboratory, Mariam activated a small device on her wrist. The room's lighting shifted subtly, and the air seemed to thicken with potential. "What are you doing?" Jackson whispered. Mariam smiled enigmatically. "Setting the stage for our visitors. If the Council wants beauty, first they need to learn how humans perceive it." The laboratory doors slid open to admit the alien delegation. High Arbiter Voxtal entered first, his ceremonial metals now a cautious shade of green. Behind him came representatives from various Council worlds, including the crystalline Arcturian who had shown interest in Mariam's sand mandala. "High Arbiter," Elena greeted with a formal bow. "Your visit honors us." "This is not a social call, Ambassador," Voxtal replied coolly. The Council wishes to monitor your progress toward fulfilling your commitment. Miriam stepped forward. Of course, we welcome your observation. She gestured toward the center of the laboratory where a complex apparatus stood partially assembled. As you can see, my work proceeds. The Arcturian moved closer to the apparatus, their crystalline body refracting light in curious patterns. This technology incorporates quantum resonance fields beyond what your species should be capable of developing. Perhaps your assessment of our capabilities requires revision, Miriam suggested politely. Voxtal's metals shifted to a skeptical purple. Explain your approach, Doctor. How do you intend to demonstrate true beauty as required by the Council's challenge? Miriam walked to a nearby workstation and activated a holographic display. Beauty is subjective, but certain patterns of perception transcend biological differences. My research focuses on identifying those universal patterns and amplifying them. The display showed brain scans from various species, highlighting similar neural responses to different stimuli. An Arcturian crystal formation, Miriam explained, pointing to the first image. A human symphony, a Meldorian color dance, all trigger analogous responses in completely different neural architectures. Not identical, but fundamentally related. These are merely biological responses to stimuli, objected a Vrexel representative, their gelatinous form rippling with skepticism. True beauty transcends mere sensory pleasure. Precisely, Miriam agreed, surprising the alien. Which is why my approach goes beyond triggering simple neural responses. She gestured, and the lighting in the laboratory shifted again. The walls seemed to recede, creating an illusion of vast space. From hidden speakers, a subtle harmonic tone began to play, barely perceptible yet strangely compelling. What you're experiencing now, Miriam explained, is a calibration sequence. Each of you perceives it slightly differently, based on your unique sensory apparatus. But the underlying pattern is the same, a mathematical progression that exists in nature throughout the galaxy. The Arcturian tilted their crystalline form, catching the light differently. The Fibonacci sequence, among others, Miriam confirmed. The point is not the specific pattern, but the universal recognition of it. Beauty isn't imposed, it's recognized. It already exists in the structure of reality itself. She moved to the center of the laboratory and placed her hand on the partially assembled apparatus. This device doesn't create beauty. It simply reveals what's already there. Like a telescope reveals distant stars, or a microscope reveals cellular structures. Voxtal studied the apparatus with greater interest, his metals shifting to a curious blue. You claim your device will allow different species to perceive beauty in the same way? Not the same way, Miriam corrected, but to recognize the same fundamental patterns, despite our different perceptual frameworks, to find common ground in aesthetic experience. The High Arbiter circled the apparatus slowly. A compelling theory, Doctor. But theories alone will not satisfy the Council's requirements. Of course not, Miriam agreed, which is why I'd like to offer a preliminary demonstration. Elena shot Miriam a concerned look. They hadn't discussed this. What kind of demonstration? Voxtal inquired. Miriam retrieved a small crystal sphere from her workstation, similar to the one she'd used in the Council chamber, but more refined. This contains a fractal subset of what the completed apparatus will be capable of. With your permission, I'd like to share a brief experience. The aliens exchanged glances. Their body language, despite vast biological differences, all showing similar caution. Your previous demonstration was unexpected, Voxtal acknowledged. It created considerable debate within the Council. Debate is the beginning of understanding, Miriam said. This demonstration is much simpler and entirely voluntary. After a moment's hesitation, the Arcturian stepped forward. I volunteer to experience the human's demonstration. Voxtal's metals flickered with surprise, but he nodded permission. Miriam held the crystal sphere between her palms and closed her eyes in concentration. The sphere began to glow, emitting a soft light that pulsed in a complex rhythm. The experience will last approximately 30 seconds, she explained. Simply observe the light patterns and allow yourself to perceive them without analysis. The Arcturian's crystalline body oriented toward the sphere, its facets catching and refracting the pulsing light. As the demonstration continued, a remarkable transformation occurred. The alien's crystalline structure began to resonate at the same frequency as the light, creating harmonic patterns within its body. The other aliens watched with growing interest as the Arcturians' form displayed increasingly complex internal structures, geometric patterns that shifted and evolved in perfect synchrony with the pulsing light. When the 30 seconds concluded, the sphere's light faded. The Arcturian remained motionless for several moments before its resonance gradually returned to normal. "What did you experience?" Voxtall asked. The Arcturian seemed to struggle for words, unusual for a species known for precise communication. I perceived patterns within patterns, fractals that existed simultaneously at all scales, like viewing the fundamental structure of reality itself. "And was it beautiful?" Miriam asked gently. Cat, Home, Claude, HFY Story, Part 3.md. EOF, the central plaza of Nexus Station, humanity's first major off-Earth diplomatic outpost, buzzed with representatives from a dozen worlds. 2 months had passed since Voxtall's visit to Earth, and rumors about Miriam's mysterious quantum art had spread throughout the galactic diplomatic community. Miriam stood before a small gathering demonstrating a miniature version of her creation. A sphere of swirling light hovered above her palms, containing what appeared to be a living galaxy in miniature. As the audience watched, the patterns within shifted in response to their emotions, creating a feedback loop of beauty and perception. "Impressive parlor trick," remarked Zethvon, the Tachyon Dominion's chief scientific attaché, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming under the station's lights. "But hardly the transcendent beauty the council demanded." "This is merely a prototype," Miriam replied calmly. "The final piece will integrate with the quantum substrate of reality itself." "Impossible," Zethvon scoffed. "Even the ancient Arcturians never achieved true quantum integration with artistic expression." From the back of the gathering, a new voice spoke. Perhaps that is because the Arcturians lacked the human capacity for contradictions. The crowd parted to reveal Ambassador Kilren of the Solani Confluence, a species known for their neutrality in council politics. The Solanis resembled tall, willowy humanoids with iridescent skin that rippled with color in response to their emotions. Currently, Kilren displayed patterns of curiosity and respect. "Ambassador?" Elena greeted with surprise. The Solani rarely involved themselves in matters concerning newly discovered species. "I have been observing Dr. Okafor's work with interest," Kilren said, approaching the demonstration. "The Solani have long believed that true beauty emerges from paradox, the space between order and chaos. Humans seem uniquely attuned to this intersection." Zethvon's mechanical appendages clicked with agitation. The Solani would do well to remember their place in council hierarchies. Humans are under evaluation, not partnership consideration. Kilren's skin flickered with patterns that translated roughly to amusement. "And yet, here we stand, discussing their potential as if equals. Curious, isn't it?" Later that evening, Elena, Miriam, and Commander Jackson met with Kilren in a private chamber secured against surveillance. "Why help us?" Elena asked directly. "The Solani have maintained neutrality for thousands of years." Kilren's skin rippled with complex patterns before settling into a calm blue. "The council has grown, stagnant. Many of us believe that new perspectives are necessary for galactic evolution. Humans represent something we haven't seen in millennia." "Barbarians at the gate," Jackson suggested dryly. "Innovators at the threshold," Kilren corrected. "Your species creates under constraints that would crush others. You find beauty in impermanence, in struggle. This is valuable." Miriam leaned forward. "You know something about the Council's true intentions." It wasn't a question, and Kilren didn't treat it as one. "The Category 4 designation was decided before your species ever made first contact. Certain Council factions fear your potential. They see in humans a reflection of what they once were. Dynamic, adaptable, unpredictable, and dangerous," Elena concluded. "Precisely." Kilren's skin displayed a pattern of grave concern. "Which is why your demonstration must succeed beyond all expectations." You must shatter their preconceptions so thoroughly that they cannot maintain the Category 4 designation without exposing their bias to the entire galactic community. Jackson crossed his arms. So we're fighting a political battle, not just an artistic one. All great art is political, Commander, Kyle Ren responded, especially when it reshapes reality. The Solani produced a small crystalline data core. This contains technical specifications for the Council Chamber's quantum resonance fields. If Dr. Okafor truly intends to integrate her work with the quantum substrate, this will be essential. Miriam took the crystal, examining it with wonder. This is classified Council technology. It is a gift, Kyle Ren said, skin pulsing with determination. Use it wisely. As the meeting concluded, Kyle Ren paused at the doorway. There is one more thing you should know. The final judgment will not be made by the full council. What do you mean? Elena asked. Only the 7 arbiters will vote on Earth's classification, Kyle Ren explained. And Voxtal holds 2 votes as High Arbiter. Jackson's expression darkened. So we need to convince 4 out of 7 judges who've already decided against us? No. Kyle Ren's skin displayed what could only be described as a smile. You need to create something so beautiful that they cannot deny its power without denying their own capacity to perceive beauty itself. Do that, and even Voxtal will be forced to acknowledge humanity's worth. After Kyle Ren departed, Elena turned to Miriam. Can you do it? Can you create something that powerful? Miriam studied the crystalline data core, her expression resolute. I'll need to completely redesign my approach. What I was creating before was impressive but still bound by human conceptions of beauty. She looked up, her eyes reflecting the crystal's light. Now I need to create something that speaks to the very essence of consciousness itself, human and alien alike. How long will that take? Jackson asked. Miriam's laugh held both exhaustion and determination. We have 3 months left. I'll need every second. The following weeks saw Miriam's laboratory transform. Using the council data provided by Kyle Ren, she dismantled her original apparatus and began constructing something far more ambitious. Crystalline structures grew from the laboratory floor like alien vegetation, pulsing with energies that occasionally caused reality itself to ripple. Elena arranged diplomatic missions to various council worlds, gathering insight into how different species perceived beauty. Jackson coordinated security, keeping council surveillance probes at bay while allowing just enough observation to maintain the illusion of transparency. One evening, as Miriam worked late into the night, a holographic communication request chimed. The projected image revealed the Arcturian who had experienced her demonstration, Dr. Okafor, the crystalline being greeted. I hope I'm not interrupting your work. Not at all, Miriam replied, setting aside her tools. What can I do for you, honored Arcturian? I have been contemplating our encounter, the alien said. The experience you shared has continued to resonate within me. I find my perception of reality subtly altered. Miriam leaned forward with interest. In what way? I perceive patterns I previously overlooked, harmonies in seemingly random phenomena. It is as if you activated neural pathways that had always existed but remained dormant. The Arcturian's crystalline form shifted, catching the light differently. Is this art? This persistent change in perception? The best art changes how we see, Miriam confirmed, not just in the moment of experiencing it, but permanently. It rewires our understanding of reality. A profound power, the Arcturian observed. I understand now why certain council factions fear your species. The statement hung in the air between them. The 7 arbiters have been discussing your case extensively, the Arcturian continued. Opinion is divided. Some see potential in human aesthetic perception. Others see only threat. And you? Miriam asked. What do you see? The crystalline being seemed to consider this carefully. I see possibility, potential for growth the Council has not experienced in millennia. Will you testify to that effect when the final judgment comes? I am not an arbiter, the Arcturian reminded her, but I have influence among my kind. The Arcturian confluence holds respect within the Council. We will speak in favor of reassessing humanity's classification. After the communication ended, Miriam returned to her work with renewed vigor. The Arcturians' experience confirmed what she had hoped. Her art could create lasting change in perception, even across species barriers. The following day, Elena arrived at the laboratory with troubling news. The Tachyon Dominion is pushing for an earlier judgment date. They claim sufficient observation has been conducted, and further delay serves no purpose. Miriam looked up. From the complex crystalline apparatus that now dominated the center of the laboratory, they're afraid. They've seen enough to know we might succeed. Can you be ready sooner? Elena asked. Miriam studied the apparatus critically. Maybe, but I'll need help, more than just human assistance. What kind of help? I need direct input from various council species. Neural patterns, perceptual frameworks, aesthetic responses, the more diverse the better. Elena frowned. That's a diplomatic challenge. Most species guard their neural data zealously. Then we need to give them a reason to share, Miriam said. Arrange a symposium, a cultural exchange focused on comparative aesthetics. Make it prestigious enough that species will want to participate. Using diplomacy to gather scientific data, Elena mused. Clever. Using art to bridge divides, Miriam corrected. It's what humans have always done. 2 weeks later, Nexus Station hosted the first interspecies aesthetic symposium. Representatives from 17 council worlds participated, bringing examples of their cultural expressions and, more importantly, for Miriam, volunteering for neural scanning during aesthetic experiences. The Meldorians presented color dances that utilize their transparent bodies to create living light. Cat, her home Claude HFY Story Part 4 to MD. Eof with just 2 weeks remaining before the Council's final judgment. Miriam's laboratory had transformed into something barely recognizable as human technology. Crystalline structures grew from the floors and ceiling, pulsing with quantum energies that occasionally caused reality itself to ripple around them. Elena entered to find Miriam suspended in the center of the room, surrounded by holographic equations and artistic patterns so complex they hurt to look at directly. The council delegation arrives tomorrow for the preliminary review, Elena announced. Are you ready? Miriam descended slowly, her eyes bloodshot from weeks of minimal sleep. Ready? No. But I'm close to something extraordinary. She gestured to the quantum crystal formations. With Kyle Wren's data, I've managed to sync my creation with the fundamental frequency of conscious perception itself. Elena approached a crystal cluster that seemed to shift between states of matter. What exactly will they see? Not see, Miriam corrected. Experience. When activated in the council chamber, my creation will temporarily harmonize the perceptual frameworks of all present. For a brief moment, every consciousness in that room, human, Meldorian, Tachyon, all of them, will share a unified experience of beauty across all sensory modalities. Is that safe? Elena asked, concerned. Theoretically, Miriam admitted. I've tested it on volunteer representatives from 12 species. The effect is profound. Several wept, though anatomically that means different things for different species. The laboratory door slid open, and Commander Jackson entered with an urgent expression. We have a problem. Major security breach. What happened? Elena demanded. Jackson activated a holographic display showing security footage. 4 hours ago, someone accessed Miriam's secure data storage and transmitted copies off-world. The footage showed a familiar figure, Zeth, Vaughn of the Tachyon Dominion, interfacing with Miriam's systems using advanced technology that bypassed Earth's security protocols. He stole my research, Miriam whispered, horror spreading across her face. Worse, Jackson said grimly. Intelligence just intercepted a priority communication from the Tachyon Dominion to the High Arbiter. They're claiming that your work is based on stolen Tachyon technology, that humans are incapable of such innovation without theft. Elena's diplomatic training couldn't hide her outrage. That's absurd. They're the ones who stole from us. It's a clever move, Jackson acknowledged bitterly. They get access to Miriam's breakthrough technology, while simultaneously discrediting humanity. The Council will have no choice but to rule against us now. Miriam sank into a chair, the weight of their situation crashing down on her. Without my research validated as authentically human, we've lost before we've even presented. Can we prove the theft? Show that Zeth Vaughn accessed our systems? Elena asked. Jackson shook his head. The Tachyon Dominion will claim diplomatic immunity, and their story will be that they were merely recovering their own technology. The laboratory fell silent as the three humans contemplated their seemingly impossible situation. Then unexpectedly, Miriam began to laugh. What could possibly be funny right now? Elena asked. Miriam stood, a new energy animating her exhausted frame. They think they've won by stealing my research, but they've made a critical mistake. They stole my data, my plans, my formulas, my theoretical frameworks. Exactly, Jackson said. That's the problem. No, Miriam countered, her eyes bright with renewed purpose. It's our salvation, because they don't understand what they stole. The quantum formulations are meaningless without the artistic intent behind them. They've stolen the notes but not the music. The paint but not the vision. What are you saying? Elena asked. I'm saying we change our approach entirely, Miriam declared. If they want to claim my technology, let them. We'll give them something they can never steal, something uniquely, irrevocably human. She moved to a workbench and began rapidly sketching a new design. We have 2 weeks. I need to dismantle everything we've built and create. Something completely different, something so fundamentally tied to human experience that no alien species could possibly claim it as their own. Is that even possible? Jackson asked. Miriam looked up, her expression fierce with determination. They said humans can't create beauty. I'm going to prove them wrong. Not with technology they can steal, but with something they can't even comprehend until they experience it. What do you need from us? Elena asked. Everything, Miriam replied. I need access to Earth's artistic archives, all of it from cave paintings to virtual reality. I need musicians, dancers, poets, and I need the quantum crystal at the heart of the council chamber. That's impossible, Jackson protested. The crystal is the most heavily guarded artifact in council space. Then find me a way to access it for just 5 minutes before the final presentation, Miriam insisted. That's all I need. Elena and Jackson exchanged concerned glances, but the alternative was Earth's permanent subjugation. I'll contact Kyle Wren, Elena decided. If anyone can help us access the crystal, it's the Solani. And I'll prepare a security team, Jackson added. If this turns into an extraction operation, we'll need to be ready. Miriam turned back to her work, already dismantling the quantum structures she'd spent months perfecting. 2 weeks to redefine beauty for the entire galaxy, she murmured. No pressure. The following days passed in a blur of frantic activity. While Miriam worked on her new creation, Elena engaged in delicate diplomatic maneuvering. She requested an emergency hearing before a subset of the council, presenting evidence of the tachyon theft. These accusations are groundless, Zeth Vaughn declared when confronted. The Tachyon Dominion has been developing quantum aesthetic integration for centuries. If similarities exist between our research and Dr. Okafor's work, the explanation is simple. She stole from us, not the reverse. To Elena's dismay, many council representatives seemed inclined to believe the tachyon version of events. Humanity's status as newcomers worked against them. The Tachyon Dominion's 50,000 years of council membership carried significant weight. Only the Arcturian representative spoke in humanity's defense. I have experienced Dr. Okafor's work directly, they testified. It bears unique characteristics consistent with human neural architecture, elements no tachyon could have conceived. When the preliminary hearing concluded without resolution, Elena returned to Earth with grave news. The council is divided, she reported. Some believe us, others believe the tachyons, but most simply don't want to take sides in what they see as a minor dispute between an established power and an upstart species. So they'll let the tachyons steal my work and then punish humanity for it. Miriam said bitterly. Not necessarily, Elena replied. The accusation has created enough controversy that the final judgment has been postponed by 3 days. And, she lowered her voice, Kyle Wren has arranged something regarding the crystal. Miriam looked up from the strange, seemingly primitive object she was crafting. What kind of something? The less you know, the better, Elena said. Just be ready to implement whatever you're planning when the time comes. As the date of the final judgment approached, Zeth Vaughn made an unexpected move. the Tachyon Dominion announced. They would present their own demonstration of quantum aesthetic integration immediately before humanity's presentation, a demonstration they claimed would prove the origin of the technology. They're going to use my stolen research against me, Miriam realized when she heard the news. They'll show a partial implementation of my original design and claim I copied them. Can they make it work? Jackson asked. Not fully, Miriam said after consideration. They have the formulas but not the understanding. Their demonstration will be impressive but shallow, like a child reading poetry phonetically without comprehending the words. Will that matter to the council? Elena wondered. It might not, Miriam admitted, but it creates an opportunity. They expect me to present something similar to what they stole, to try competing on their terms. But that's exactly what I won't do. The night before their departure for the council chamber, Kyle Wren arrived secretly at Miriam's laboratory. The Solani's skin displayed urgent patterns as they handed Miriam a small crystalline key. This will grant you 5 minutes of direct access to the council crystal's resonance field, Kyle Wren explained. No more. Use it at precisely the right moment. You will have only one chance. How did you obtain this? Elena asked, examining the key with wonder. Kyle Wren's skin darkened. It is better you don't know. The Solani have maintained neutrality for millennia by knowing when to act, and when to appear not to have acted. Thank you, Miriam said simply. Whatever happens tomorrow, know that humanity acknowledges this debt. There is no debt between those who seek truth, Kyle Wren replied. The council has grown complacent, resistant to change. Whatever the outcome, your challenge has already begun to shift the balance. As Kyle Wren departed, Jackson asked the question they were all thinking. What if it doesn't work? What if the council still rules against us? Then humanity faces a difficult future, Elena acknowledged. Restricted travel, limited trade, perpetual oversight? No, Miriam disagreed, her voice quiet but firm. If the council rules against us despite a fair... Cat, Home, Claude, HFY Story, Part 5 on the MD. If the Grand Judgment Chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with tension as representatives from over 300 worlds gathered for Earth's final assessment. The crystalline spires seemed to pulse with anticipation, refracting light from the distant suns into patterns that danced across the assembled dignitaries. High Arbiter Vox Tal presided from his elevated platform, his ceremonial medals shifting between colors of stern judgment and smug satisfaction. Beside him, the 7 arbiters, including 2 representatives from the Tachyon Dominion, sat in ominous silence. Ambassador Elena Reyes stood alone on the central platform, her diplomatic uniform now augmented with subtle elements of Earth's diverse cultural heritage, a Maasai beaded collar, Inuit ivory buttons, Polynesian woven patterns. Every element had been chosen with deliberate purpose. The council reconvenes to render final judgment on human classification, Vox Tal announced, his voice resonating throughout the chamber. Before our decision, the humans have requested opportunity to present their demonstration of beauty. His tone made the concept sound like a childish fantasy. Where is the human scientist? Who claims such impressive breakthroughs? Demanded Zethvan, his exoskeleton gleaming with what seemed to be newly integrated components clearly derived from Miriam's stolen research. Dr. Okafor sends her regrets. Elena replied calmly. She is still on Earth completing her work. Murmurs of disapproval swept through the chamber. Vox Tal's medals flashed with annoyance. This is highly irregular. The terms of judgment required presentation before the full council, and so it shall be, Elena assured him. With the council's permission, we will proceed with a remote presentation. Before Vox Tal could object, the massive doors to the chamber opened. Commander Jackson entered, accompanied by a team carrying what appeared to be primitive equipment, simple wooden boxes, handcrafted instruments, containers of pigment and water. What is the meaning of this? Vox Tal demanded. We were promised a demonstration of advanced human achievement, Elena smiled. With respect, High Arbiter, the council demanded a demonstration of human beauty. We intend to provide exactly that. As Jackson's team arranged their equipment around the chamber's perimeter, Elena continued addressing the council. For months, we attempted to create beauty that would satisfy your advanced technological standards. We developed quantum-integrated art that could theoretically reshape perception itself. She glanced meaningfully at Zeth Vaughn, whose mechanical appendages clicked with nervous energy. Some found our research so compelling they felt the need to appropriate it. These accusations are baseless, Zeth Vaughn protested. The Tachyon Dominion has evidence that human innovation was merely theft of our proprietary technology. An interesting claim, Elena acknowledged. One which made us reconsider our approach entirely. You see, if beauty can only exist through advanced technology, then perhaps the Council's definition is too narrow. She gestured, and Jackson activated a simple holographic projector. The lights in the chamber dimmed, and a life-sized projection of Miriam appeared in the center of the platform beside Elena. "Greetings, Council," Miriam's projection said. "I regret I cannot be with you physically, but my work requires my presence on Earth. What you are about to experience is not technological marvel, but human expression in its purest form." The hologram expanded to show Miriam standing in what appeared to be natural cave on Earth. Behind her, illuminated by flickering light, were ancient cave paintings, 30,000 years old, depicting animals, hunts, and human handprints. "Beauty began for us here," Miriam explained, touching the cave wall reverently. "Before writing, before civilization, humans created art. Not for utility, not for advantage, but because creation itself fulfilled something essential in our nature." The projection shifted through a montage of human artistic achievement: Greek sculptures, Chinese calligraphy, Renaissance paintings, Japanese gardens, African masks, modernist architecture, culminating in contemporary forms from every continent on Earth. "We do not create beauty despite being human," Miriam's voice continued as the images flowed. "We create beauty because we are human. It is not separate from our violence, our struggles, our imperfections. It emerges from them." In the council chamber, Jackson's team had completed their preparations. At various points around the vast space, they began simple, apparently primitive demonstrations. A woman created watercolor paintings with quick, practiced strokes. An elderly man shaped clay with gnarled hands. A young person played a wooden flute, its melody hauntingly simple. "What is this primitive display?" one of the arbiters demanded. "We expected quantum integration, not handicrafts." "Patience," Elena counseled. "The demonstration is just beginning." On the hologram, Miriam now stood in her laboratory. Behind her was a device unlike any she had created before. A simple crystal sphere mounted on what appeared to be a handcrafted wooden stand. "My original approach was fundamentally flawed," Miriam admitted. "I tried to create beauty that would impress you technologically. But true beauty doesn't require advanced technology. It requires authentic connection." She approached the crystal sphere. "This contains nothing but human experience, the collective artistic consciousness of our species distilled into its purest form, not as data or formulas, but as raw emotional truth." In the council chamber, the human artists continued their demonstrations, their work becoming more coordinated, more purposeful. The melody from the flute was joined by soft percussion, then voice. The painter's strokes began to follow the rhythm. The clay took shape in time with the music. "What you're witnessing is not a technological marvel," Elena explained to the increasingly attentive council. "It's human collaboration, the space between individuals where beauty emerges from our collective effort." On the hologram, Miriam placed her hands on the crystal sphere. "With the help of friends," she said with a knowing glance that seemed directed at Kyle Wren, "I've synchronized this sphere with the quantum crystal at the heart of the council chamber. What you are about to experience is not human technology, but human truth." The sphere in Miriam's hands began to glow with inner light. Simultaneously, the massive quantum crystal suspended above the council chamber, the ancient artifact that powered the entire facility, pulsed with the same resonance. "Impossible," Voxtal exclaimed. "The central crystal cannot be accessed without—" His words died as the crystal's light intensified, bathing the chamber in a warm, golden glow. The human artists in the chamber continued their work with increasing intensity, but now their creations began to ripple with impossible energy, the watercolors flowing beyond their paper, the clay figure seeming to breathe, the music becoming visible as patterns of light. "What you are experiencing," Miriam's voice explained as reality itself seemed to shift around the council, "is not an illusion or technological trick. It is simply human creativity, amplified through your own perceptual systems." Throughout the chamber, The alien representatives responded in ways unique to their physiologies. The crystalline Arcturians vibrated at frequencies visible to the naked eye. The gaseous vril formed complex new molecular structures. The hive-minded Zeks synchronized into perfect harmony. At the center of it all, the hologram of Miriam dissolved into pure light, revealing that it had never been a recording. She had been present the entire time. Her consciousness transmitted through the quantum link she had established. Beauty is not universal. Miriam's voice echoed through the chamber as her physical form coalesced from light at the center of the platform. It is deeply specific, cultural, individual. What makes human beauty unique is not that we all perceive it the same way, but that we recognize its power despite our differences. The artists around the chamber completed their works simultaneously, the painting now a cosmos of color, the clay figure a perfect representation of the quantum crystal itself, the music a harmony that resonated with the fundamental frequency of the chamber. We do not ask you to judge our beauty by your standards, Miriam concluded, fully materialized now beside Elena. We ask you to recognize that beauty exists in infinite forms throughout the galaxy and that humanity's contribution is valuable precisely because it is different. The light from the quantum crystal gradually subsided, returning the chamber to normal, yet not quite the same. Something had changed in the quality of the space itself, as if the very atoms had been rearranged in subtle, permanent ways. Silence reigned for long moments. Then, from his elevated platform, High Arbiter Voxtal rose. His ceremonial metals had settled into a color never before seen in the council chamber, a deep, resonant blue that seemed to contain depth beyond its surface. In all my centuries, he said slowly, I have never experienced such. For perhaps the first time in council history, the High Arbiter seemed at a loss for words. One by one, the 7 arbiters rose from their seats. Even Zethvan's mechanical exoskeleton seemed somehow altered, softer. The harsh angles of his appendages curved into more organic shapes. The council has witnessed, Voxtal finally declared, his voice carrying a new quality of humility, and the council must acknowledge truth when confronted with it. Humans do not create beauty despite their contradictions. They create beauty because of them.